So hello everyone, welcome to this sixth edition of the Meet to Blue Expert series. Today we are welcoming James Nikitine to talk about how to interact with your audience better. So James, could you say a little word about what do you come from and what you are doing for the ocean?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Merci, Guillaume. Good morning, rather. So yeah, my name is James Nikitine. I'm a marine scientist, filmmaker, and a consultant, and I am based in New Zealand. I'm also the co-chair of the EU4Ocean platform. So we're all part of the EU4Ocean coalition. So the Youth4Ocean is part of it, but there's also the platform of which I was one of the founding members. And so yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful to be here on this Meet the Experts. I don't really like the word expert, but I'll try and give you some insight into what I do for a living, and hopefully you'll get some useful take home things that you can apply in your own work or in your personal life as well. So yeah, thank you very much, Guillaume, and I look forward to good discussion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. Without waiting further ado, let's start with our today's subject. So James, what could you give us some tips to our members on how to improve their communication for ocean literacy?
Yes, I don't know how you want to do this, Guillaume, but I had a presentation prepared. So I don't know if you want me to go and start that now, or do you want me to have a bit more conversation first, or it's entirely okay. So okay, I'll probably just dive in. I'm hopefully going to be able to share my screen, and I'll keep the chat option open. So hopefully, if you have any questions, you can just ask a question, and hopefully I can answer that as well. But if you wanted to interrupt me and just wanted to ask a question right away, you're more than welcome to do so. So yeah, can you see my screen? Can you see it? Yeah.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Yes. Okay. So marine communication is my business. As I said before, I'm a consultant. I'll go to the next slide. I'm French-British. I was born in '85 in Paris, Russian background. I've dived for a long time, so about 25 years now, undergraduate in film and postgraduate in marine science. I worked in diving, so that was how I sort of fell in the diving world and ocean world as a dive guide on the Great Barrier Reef. And then I sort of embarked on a career between Geneva, my hometown, and the UK. So the two countries that I call home are France and the UK. To work in science and policy in the strategic communication space, following on making films with IUCN, IOC, UNESCO. I hear, Valentina, you're working with them as well. Ocean Acidification Alliance, the Edinburgh Ocean Leaders. So I'm a graduate of Edinburgh, so I have a good connection with Scotland and Edinburgh still, and WWF, the Pew Trust. And in 2020, I started a foundation, the Blue Cradle Foundation here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And a year before that, I was onboarded as the inaugural co-chair of the EU4Ocean platform. I'm starting a PhD normally later this year, which is a bit of news. So this is kind of a exclusivity, exclusive announcement. Later this year, I'm doing a science communication PhD here in New Zealand. So for me, like, everything started with falling in love with the reef. So this is a photo of the Great Barrier Reef in 2012. So exactly probably 10 years ago, I was a dive guide there, and I really felt that I could do something more than just taking people to see the reef. Although it was a very important thing, I felt that I wanted to work in policy and science more. So I went back to Geneva and went back to university, and 28, I did my master's in Scotland. This has since been my guiding principle, and it still is today, and gradually so, because my PhD will focus on that as well. So the understanding of the ocean's influence on you, and the influence and your influence on the ocean. So that is the definition, as we know, of ocean literacy, which encompasses a lot of things. So if you think about it, It's what we take out of the ocean. It's also what we put in the ocean. It's what the ocean can do on us. It's what we can do on the ocean. So it's very complex, and it's very hard to define in one sentence. But the National Marine Educators Association developed this curriculum, educators in the US working closely with scientists. And as we know now, it's been reshaped and reformatted by UNESCO, and now it's the Heart of the Ocean Decade. So, I feel it's very important to unpack this, because it's not something easy to comprehend. And of course, you have the 7 ocean literacy principles, which are very broad, extremely broad, actually. And so when we talk of an ocean literate person as the curriculum, the 2005 publication, and later in 2017, what they all say is that someone who understands ocean literacy understands these essential principles and fundamental concepts about the ocean. So that's what it means. But also, it doesn't only mean that. It also means that someone who's ocean literate can communicate about that in a meaningful way. So in a way, enhancing ocean literacy is then spreading the word and having people spread more about ocean literacy as they go. So in a way, making everyone an advocate for the ocean as you go about. And then being able to make informed decisions and responsible decisions regarding the ocean and its resources. And I think that definition is almost as important as the principles themselves. If you go and look back, of course, every principle is important. The Earth has one big ocean with many features. The ocean and life in the ocean shape the features of Earth. It's a major influence on weather and climate. It's making the Earth habitable. It supports a great diversity of life and ecosystems, and it's all interconnected, and it's unexplored. So all that is very important, but I think it depends on the point of view. This is just an illustrative image, but if you think of the ocean as an entertainment place, it's seen as very positive. You go and you spend time in the ocean, you go for a surf, you go for a dive. If you're into fishing, that's your thing. It's very positive. That's the influence that it has on you, on your emotions. But something positive can also be negative, and something negative can be positive. So if you think of this image, which is something that normally would look negative, it's a boat that's sinking or that's sunk, hit a reef. You might think this is a negative influence that we're having on the ocean, because we're going to be polluting the ecosystems and the species. But in essence, it wasn't, it didn't set out to be something negative, because it's something that we wanted to be positive. We wanted it to be something that we can take from A to B and transport goods and services. This is an accident. So it's not something that we control. It's something that just happened. But it's not so black and white. And so what I feel in my communications is that nothing is black and white. And this is another illustrative image of a wreck. And it's a shipping vessel or a boat of some sort that got hit and now is underwater, but now it's a reef. It's a living reef, and it's also a dive site. You can go there and you can dive and you can enjoy it. So the influence that we have on the ocean is sometimes it can be negative, but it can also further down the road be something positive. And so I think we should really think of ocean literacy as this area of academia, of thought, that's not necessarily black or white. And we can also adapt our discourse as we think of a topic or an issue related to the ocean. And, use your imagination, but think of all the different topics that are associated with the ocean, from fisheries to shipping to tourism to transport and so on and so on, marine renewable energy. So I think that's really my guiding principle in my work, is really not to think that ocean literacy is set in stone, that everything can be adaptable, and you can actually have an influence in that process as well. So as you go along, you're essentially riding ocean literacy. It's not just the principles that guide you, but they're actually the entire process of teaching, enhancing ocean literacy will then reinforce this ocean literacy, if that makes sense. So in my work, I've really practiced that in my marine communications business, working with governments, international multilateral organizations, focusing on those three areas: science and policy and impact, producing content, also advising, writing, policy reports and papers. These are the sorts of areas that I've been working in over the last 7 years. Plastic pollution, climate change impacts, marine protected areas, high seas governance, the BBNJ process, if you're familiar with that. Some deep sea mining issues. It's a very, very controversial topic, but it's still unresolved. And I heard that the One Ocean Summit, it's actually not on the agenda, which I'm a bit disappointed by. And so ocean training and leadership then is a growing area as well, through the work that I've been doing with the ocean leaders in Scotland. And so my work is very much marine policy in general, so decomplexifying not only the science but also the policy. So I feel that there's a real importance there in explaining conventions, frameworks, something as simple as the 1982 Convention Law of the Sea. Not everyone knows about it. Not everyone has all these concepts of EEZ and 200 nautical miles and things like that. So I think revisiting those in conjunction with the science is very important and effective. And of course, as a scientist, I take a lot of pleasure in going on expeditions and doing marine scientific research, getting in the water as much as possible. And some emerging areas of work that I've worked on, marine biosecurity and using eDNA tools for detection and sequencing and things like that. And also just straightforward speaking, biodiversity monitoring. So here in New Zealand, working on penguins protection and also meeting protected area targets, and also conferences and ocean literacy in general. So that's just really the everyday, educational opportunities with schools and universities, and really working from the young age, so primary school age and also high schools, on different projects and different focuses. This is just a word. I forgot the name for it, but it's essentially a slide with some words that I use frequently to give myself an opportunity to think about content. So when I create content that's going to engage, whether it's ocean literacy or marine conservation, the first thing you got to ask yourself is really, what's your message and who's your audience? That's really essential. Often you think of your format. That's another, it's another key question. What are you producing? Is it a short, medium, long form content, or is it a social media? So that sort of goes hand in hand with the message and audience. The good thing to think about is really to have a challenge and a solution. So when you think of an ocean challenge, it could be something as simple as sea level rise or plastic pollution, and you present the solution as effectively as you can using science. So science or indigenous knowledge or any kind of other kind of knowledge that you have access to. And it's important here not to give despair. So really to focus on giving hope through characters. So that's right in the middle there. I think characters in pieces that you produce are very important, having an arc. So when you think of filmmaking, typically you have traditionally the tradition from theater has 3 acts and so on, but you also have character arcs. And so character arcs means that they go through changes. And so characters that learn something, that they go through different phases throughout the piece that you're producing will give the audience empathy or apathy, depending on the character. And that could also be reinforced through location. So if you have someone who's from a specific country, a specific town, or a specific coastal or island nation, you then have a good chance of telling a good story. So that's essentially just 101 filmmaking, using those words as a brief. So you could use that as a brief and you can give that to someone and they would know what to do. Or you could use that yourself in a brainstorming session, which we often do when we're making films like this, and also working with clients. And so this is a really useful starting point. And so going back to what I said before about having black and white and not seeing things in black and white, I actually deliberately put that in black and white just to confuse you even more. But actually things need to be quite clear in these concepts. You need to have a message that's quite clear. You need to have an audience and so on. So yeah, just leaving that there. But the other activity that I've been developing, other than filmmaking, is my nonprofit work. So I actually mentioned at the start of this talk that I started a nonprofit in 2020. In the middle of the first lockdown pandemic, COVID-19 in March 2020. And so I named it Blue Cradle because we come from the ocean, we need to cradle it. It's like a baby, we need to look after it, but also because of the fact that we have a close connection to the ocean. We come from the ocean, and the ocean is what defines, just what I said before about ocean literacy. It defines the features on the planet. We are connected to it, and so on. And so this nonprofit, I've really managed to essentially merge all my fields of expertise. And now we have an ocean literacy program. We do work in schools. We also do film production, and we communicate stories around people and solutions. So this is just one way of maybe giving you some ideas on what can be done in your own work, focusing on the positive. We tend to always focus on the positive things out there, taking things seriously, of course, not necessarily being super optimistic. There's a lot of reason to be pessimistic, but I feel that if you want to have an audience and you want to get them to act, it's a lot easier if you have inspiring solutions that are shown that can then have you think of your own solutions, or you can even mimic those solutions. And I feel it's much better than, like I said before with the previous slide, having despair. And I think that's really where I come from. Is there's a hashtag that's been circulating for 7 or 8 years now. It's ocean optimism, and I think we need to really have that, in the ocean and also in the climate communities, but in the environmental community at large, as we really think of that we can solve this. Because if we don't, then we're not going to be able to. So one of the things that we did in 2021 was a film called Korora, which is a Maori word for little blue penguin. So you can watch that online. It's on YouTube. I encourage you to check it out. It's a cool, really, really fun, positive story around penguin conservation here in New Zealand. And so, yeah, that's really just a good example of the work that I do. Of course, there's a lot more examples, but we only have a few minutes. So I just thought I'd give you that. I'll just give you a bit of a heads up on what we're doing this year. We've got a marine biosecurity project supported by the French Embassy and the Fonds Pacifique. We're going to be doing workshops around that topic in French Polynesia and in New Zealand. We are actually preparing a bid to host the 6th MPA Congress in Aotearoa in 2026. So the next one is going to be in Vancouver in September, and we're actually preparing a significant bid for 2026, 4.5 years from now, for Wellington, for the capital. We're also preparing our microplastics and biosecurity documentary, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be 26 minutes, entirely shot in New Zealand. And we're also launching an ocean acidification educational pilot project, working with schools, with a pilot high school here, looking at pH sampling in the port of Littleton, and other educational events. We have a sea week every year, which is the first week of March. And on the 12th of March, we have an ocean literacy cruise. So we're going to go on a boat. We're going to take 40 passengers, and we're going to give them an ocean literacy day. So that's going to come up early March. And other than that, we are preparing a series, a mini series with the Radio New Zealand on Matauranga Maori. So Matauranga Maori is what's known as Maori knowledge, so indigenous knowledge, and looking at that in combination with Western science principles. And we're continuing our penguin monitoring work as well. So that's really just what we're doing on in 2022 in New Zealand. And the background photo I took is from a really healthy reef in French Polynesia just over 3 years ago. So the reef that they discovered recently in French Polynesia was very close to that one. So yeah, hope to be going out there this year very soon. And that's it. That's my contact details. Feel free to contact me anytime. I put the two websites, James Nikitine and Blue Cradle, and also my Twitter, Instagram, and email. Looking forward to your questions and to having a discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
So Michael, I saw that maybe you had a question to James.
Yes, so I think as a professional diver, you have seen the evolution of the reef and the impact of the global warming. And like for example, me, I come from New Caledonia, and I have seen the change on the reef. So according to you, what are the most effective solutions to fight against the extinction of the corals? I don't.
I mean, so I've actually been to New Caledonia, and I went diving there in 2019 before the pandemic. So I was in Nouméa, and I went to Île des Pins as well. It was very beautiful. It's a beautiful island, and the coral there was quite good. It was I was reading some reports of the bleaching crisis, the 2014 to 2017 mass bleaching event that saw the Great Barrier Reef lose 50% of its coverage. Actually, New Caledonia got quite spared, and from discussing with Serge Plan at the CRIOB just a few weeks ago, the situation in Polynesia and the reef that they discovered there actually was already known. It was just the locals knew about it, and it was heavily mediatized, but it had a very good coverage at a depth of 40 meters. I think there's a lot of unknowns for colonies and different species of corals in different regions. There's also some suspicion that some parts of the coral triangle have actually coral growth as opposed to coral decline. So there's a lot of unknowns. I think the leading science in this area is the genome science happening, and a lot of that is happening in the Red Sea. And I know that they're working on coral heat resistance corals that can withstand temperature increases of 31, 32 degrees. So I think that the future is maybe not so grim. I don't want to be optimistic. I think we should be maybe a little bit less pessimistic, and I think that should be encouraging, that we're discovering corals at a depth of 40 meters, 40 to 60 meters that are actually really healthy. And I think that, of course, there's a lot of research happening in Australia in the what I call geoengineering, but that they're trying to dim the light, put some coolers above the water and things like that, funded by the government. And I think there's a lot of research in that as well. So there's a bit of everything at the moment in this area. But I think if you think of pollution and multiple stresses, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on land with fighting nutrient runoff and pollution. So I think the heat issue, there's not a lot we can do about it other than lower our greenhouse gas emissions. And I think that's kind of everybody says that, but it's kind of the only solution really. The only thing we can do is have localized planting and localized nurseries and things like that, and also fighting on land the issues that are also harming the reef that we talk less about, but actually they're really important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Jean, you had a question.
Yes, I have the questions.
Please go.
So thanks for the sharing to the great information and presentations. Thanks so much, James. And I would like to ask, I'm so moved to your presentations and your topics. And this time I would like to ask two questions. Actually, I'm working on the Asia Pacific countries ocean conservation, especially for the marine litters. And that time, to save and to conserve the oceans itself, we need to work harder to associate with the academic sectors and company sectors. especially for the private sectors, strongly working onto the ocean development. That time, I like to ask you that how can we make a relationship, sustainable relationship with the private sectors to enforce the ocean conservation? And second question is now recently there's many treaties and the recognitions and the restrictions throughout to the talking into the UN authors and the UNESCO IOCs and also and so on for the talking about the ocean conservations. That time, what topics should we include or should we bring into the international conventions for the saving the ocean? So that's the two questions. Thanks so much.
Okay, Jean, konnichiwa, arigatou gozaimasu. Hi, and I think I will answer your questions. I think the second one you might have to ask it again, but the first one, I think for the private sector one, I think the answer is not so simple, but I think we are seeing a progression in the corporate social responsibility space. So we are seeing a lot of companies in the private sector that are not necessarily associated with ocean, industry at all. Embarking on the journey of might be called actually blue washing. So I think there's good and bad. I think there's a good thing is that we are talking about it, and there's more and more people who are talking about it. And I think specifically related to the plastics pollution issue, I think we have seen a significant uptake in the private sector investment in that space, and I think we are about hopefully to get a new treaty in March at the UNEA. The United Nations Environment Assembly. So hopefully we can cross our fingers that we are going to reach a global plastics pollution treaty. And I think if you think of the private sector at the UN level, I'm familiar with the UN Global Compact. I don't know if you know them, but they're a private sector UN partner that essentially fulfills that purpose. So what they have is essentially a membership based of private companies, consortiums, large global, multinationals who have access to then fund these projects, which are a positive. So you are going there. Okay, great. So that's what I'm encourage you to look at is the UN Global Compact, and then on another level, I think the private sector often you have to start thinking about which company is likely to embark on an ocean conservation journey, and so I think that's when you think of the manufacturers. I wasn't aware, but actually now seeing the car industry, the automobile industry being, against deep seabed mining is quite significant, because I feel that, this is not just, this is about the deep sea. This is about protecting the deep sea that we know very little about. And the moratorium on deep sea mining has been validated by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, not by the UN. But having said that, having car manufacturers publicly saying that they won't buy metals and rare metals, cobalt and nickel and from the deep sea until we know more about the science, I think that's a very positive sign from the private sector, from the automobile sector. So I think there's a lot of good coming from the private sector, and we really need to work collaboratively. The other forum is the World Economic Forum, of course, which has a very good Friends of Ocean Action, which are doing a lot of good work. For your second question, which I think was specific to the global political conventions. Can you repeat it again, please?
Oh, okay. Thanks so much. Thanks for answering the first question. I'm so glad to hear this. And the second question is what topics should we bring or should we implement into the global conversations for talking about the ocean conservation, likewise to the UNEA 5.2? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that's it's bang on. I think 2022 is a super year for the ocean. We have 2020 was supposed to be the super year for the ocean. We lost it because of the pandemic, and so this year hopefully we will talk about everything, and we are talking about everything because we have the One Ocean Summit, we have Palau, we have the UNEA, we have the BBNJ, we have CBD, we have everything. So I think in the international forums we need to have a vision for 2030 for biodiversity. That's the first thing. Around all that, as you know, we need a plastics treaty. We need a BBNJ treaty because we need to be able to do MPAs on the high seas. We also need Southern Ocean. So CAMLR every year meets in October. we need to have Southern Ocean protection. So I think all of those issues are interlinked. You cannot live on a healthy planet without a healthy ocean. And that's what Peter Thompson says. So I think all of those issues are interlinked. You cannot talk about one topic separately from the other. I think, if there was one that I would place above all the others, it would probably be the BBNJ, because the BBNJ is 60% of the ocean. And we need to find a framework to protect biodiversity in beyond national jurisdiction. So if we find that, then we can work from there. But I think we need consensus. We really need political will. We really need a determination this year, so then in future years we can truly protect 30% of the world's oceans as recommended by IUCN, and maybe reach even more, maybe 2050, maybe 50%. So that's my big hope with Southern Ocean protection and a plastics treaty. Yeah, that's my dream. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing your opinions. I'm so glad to know that. And I also, yes, and also I like to join to the UNEA 5.2 as one of the negotiators representing the Asia Pacific countries. We're talking about the waters, deep seas, and the climate change. So hope to see you at UNEA.
And yes, absolutely right. You absolutely climate change is very good, because UNFCCC now there's a climate change yearly meeting to include the ocean in the COP. So we have a COP in Egypt, I think in December this year. The following year it'll be I think Abu Dhabi, I think. And so we have 2 COPs coming up in the Middle East, and we need a commitment by the big oil producers of this world that climate change and the ocean, they're the same coin. They're 2 sides of the same coin. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you. We'll share the question of Valentina, who asked a question on the chat. So as a filmmaker and storyteller, how do you select the story to tell?
I think it really depends on the context, Valentina. Yes.
Yes.
Are you there?
Sorry. Yes, I'm here. The question was like more about, there are a lot of stories to tell, and about a lot of issues for the ocean, beauties, like how do you select which one to tell? Depends from, from the commission, maybe people contact you, and so you have to do a commissioned videos, or sometimes you are, able to tell stories that you really feel that people have to know.
I think it really depends on who has the budget. But often if you have someone who has the budget, who you can convince that you can do this without focusing on the audience and the message, which is what I talked about before, is like you have the message and the audience, that's what you start with. And then the format, okay, what are you doing, for who, for whom, and for what purpose? But if you can go beyond that and you can focus on a character that you like, or a character that you know, or someone, or a story that, like a place that there's a story that you want to follow, and you go with your gut feeling, you go with your instinct, you go with your passion. I think that should always be the case as an artist, as a filmmaker, that you follow your artistic, your creative instinct. And of course, you have to sometimes make concessions. You have to sort of navigate the difficulty of the budget, of who you're doing this for. Are you doing this for yourself? Are you doing this for someone else? But I think you can have both. You can have a creative piece that's that's to your liking, also with the budget. If you manage to convince that person who has the budget, okay, we're going to do this, trust me, this is going to be awesome. And almost as you do that, you always have to think of the rest of it as well. So you still have to think about the way it's going to be shown and the outcome. So the message and the audience is very important, no matter what. In a way, it's the eternal debate of art versus commerce in the cinema world. When you have a film, is Hollywood versus the auteur. So as you make a film, you have to sort of navigate both. You have to make a film that's going to work, but you also have to make a beautiful film that's probably going to win awards. So you can do one or the other, but the best is to do both, is to be able to do both.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think that Anna had a question.
Yeah, 1 second. Okay. Hi. So you mentioned working with policymakers and things, and irrespective of budget, what do you find is the most effective way to engage with policymakers' communication tools? I'm just trying, we're always talking about how academics coming from an academic background and working with academics, that we need to be talking more to policy, you know, whether it's research or actually just getting them aware of certain things that are happening. And I'm just wondering what communication tools you have that are effective with policymakers, and how you build relationships, if that's something that you could also just give some information on, I guess, as well. That would be helpful.
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. I mean, look, when I started off in 2013, before actually I did my master's in marine science, I was sort of in the interval there when I was just doing environmental communications. I started working with the IPCC, and the IPCC released its AR5 report, the fifth assessment report in 2013. I was living in Geneva, my hometown, and so they did for the first time they did videos, and they did videos to accompany the report, and so we won the commission to do the distribution of those videos and to get them through some syndication platforms and so on and so forth. And so since then, I've always thought that, you know, nobody reads these reports. You know, it's a harsh thing to say, but it's not always true. And you know, that's why we have summaries for policymakers and also videos. And I think now you cannot imagine a summary for policymakers or a report or even a scientific paper by an institution being released without a short video, a short social media, preferably less than 2 minutes 20, so you can throw it on Twitter, and ideally with some text and some, you know, some layered text and things like that. So if you wanted to impress policymakers, I think that's the first thing you want to do, is really have some package options for your institutions and government agencies that you work with, that, you know, you've got this covered. You've got the summary for policymakers, you've got all the website links and so on and so forth, but you also have the videos and the short videos, the impact ones, and that, you know, that's what everybody does now. And you know 2022 now, so it's not that long that you know, this has been going on. But now you cannot imagine a report being released, or you know, any policy document being released, significant ones, without that video strategy behind it. And I think it's sad to say, but a lot of them are always the same. You always have the similar format, but I think you can innovate a little bit. And I think there's a lot of scope in there for innovation and merging of different mediums as well. You can layer some photos and have some music. You can do podcasts. You can do all sorts of. So I think there's a real, I think there's a dynamic space there for content creation. Yeah. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. That was good. I agree, like, with the reports, and obviously I have seen also an influx, like an increase in the media outputs that have come with certain things, such as short videos as well, or eye-catching infographics as well. So
that's right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, so thank you.
No, you're welcome. And I think that, I mean, that's a lot of the work that I do. Be sexy and award winning. You can always have the, you know, the everyday stuff that people, you know, consume, because it's a consumer good at the end of the day. People, you know, from one, you know, especially around events is really one of the moments that you have a lot of this content, you prepare for it, and then you have it all released at once, and then you have maybe less, but in the event space, it's really useful as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I actually it just came into my head. I have a second question, so apologies to anyone else who had another one. I don't even know how to really ask it. Is obviously plastic pollution, that's something that's very easy and tangible to understand with the public. Like, you know, they can see plastic every day in their lives. It's very easy to see it polluting even on our streets. I was just wondering, how do you communicate the harder topics such as deep sea mining? You know, it's very out of sight, out of mind. We don't necessarily see it. It's quite a harder topic to kind of communicate about, and I'm thinking that the primary audience right now is the public. So not so much policy, but actually, how do you get the public engaging in topics that might be harder to understand and you know, really kind of apply to their everyday life. Whilst plastic pollution, it's very easy to think about as a member of the public.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think I haven't done a lot of work in deep sea mining per se. I did a few interviews with some senior policymakers, and I also worked on the BBNJ. I did a written report actually for the ISA directly. So I did an ocean literacy report for them, a 50-page document. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that, but I look forward to seeing it released. But what I do know is that throughout my research in this space, I think there's a lot of good that can come out of the mankind aspect of it. So the fact that the area is belongs to everyone. So it belongs to everyone. It belongs to you, it belongs to me, and whatever's down there belongs to everyone. And we should share whatever profit comes out of it. So if we are going to go down and mine for nodules, hopefully only nodules, if we ever do anything, not the other ones, because they're really difficult to get. Crust and stuff. I'm not pro mining. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we are probably at a dawn of a like a boom. And I think the way to look at it positively anyway is to think about it, of course, other than the EV aspect of it and the metals, of course, and circular economy, which has been heavily criticized, as well, by the way. I feel that the mankind, for the benefit of mankind, and I think the in its legacy and founding, the ISA was not necessarily a bad organization. It's actually a really positive organization in its mandate and what it sets out to do, which is very hard. So I feel that that's an angle that's not often been seen around that. And I think, of course, you have all of the scientific aspects around that. So every nodule is an ecosystem. Every rock down there is an ecosystem, is home to a little, worm or a little, octopus, name it. It's going to be a home for some kind of species. So we cannot possibly imagine harvesting these rocks. So there's a lot of things there that I think you can tell stories around that. You can say, well, this is the situation. Like, not a lot of content has actually gone out about this. There's one film that I watched recently that's really good, by the Deep Sea Deep Sea Coalition, Conservation Coalition, DSCC. It's probably about 9 or 10 minutes. It's a bit long, but it does cover all of the aspects that I just mentioned. The fact that it belongs to the whole of mankind. It's the area, it's massive, but it's also very fragile. We know very little about it. And we are going to go down there and get these potato-shaped nodules and hypothetically harvest them and have all these flash new EVs, and it's going to be great, but actually maybe not so much. So I think there's a lot of content that will come out in the next few years as we get to the bottom of this, and we're nowhere near there yet, because I think the moratorium and so on is just going to continue, and so we'll see. I'm very excited about this, and worried as well, because I'm not I'm an advocate of biodiversity protection, but I think that we are at a very interesting time to communicate those issues. So I think if you are thinking about creating content in that space, just hit me up.
Okay, thank you. I'm also a pro non-miner. There's just too much at stake with that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I saw that News had a question.
Hello. Thanks for the presentation. It's been very interesting. So I'm a writer, so I'm a marine scientist and a storyteller as well. And when you have a good product, a good story, because I have a really good novel about corals, and it has had a great response among the public. But what would be your advice to get the story out to reach more people?
Okay, so is it like a book with drawings, or what kind of medium is?
And it's a novel. It's a book for young adults, and it has some illustrations, but basically it's like the story. It's not a picture book. It's it's a story.
Okay, so there's no pictures. Is that what you're saying?
It's a novel. Do you know? Are you familiar
Okay.
with the concept of novel?
Yeah. It's a novel. Yeah. Okay. So I think I mean, I've not written a novel. I've written articles and things. I think there's a medium out there that's actually really interesting for those kinds of things, is audio. So I think if you were releasing it in audio format as well, it might be a good idea to have it as a podcast. So you would read it, or you or someone of your choice, and you could have it as a, people can listen to it in the car, people can listen, wherever they go. So that's something that I would look at, maybe. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of marine conservation podcasts, but I've not heard that many books that you could read and listen to as you go. And yeah, I mean, it's just an idea.
That's why I did it, because because I'm a marine scientist and a writer. I knew I could target an audience that many people are not targeting. So yeah, that's the idea. I know that there are not many books out there dealing with marine science in the whole story format, with the whole story arc, characters, everything.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, another place to start, but potentially is I mean, depending on the content, if it's more for adults or for children or anyone, but you could look at reading sessions. You could go out in some places, maybe go to Guillaume at Nausicaa at the aquarium, and you go there and you do sessions where you read the book, and then you have an audience, and yeah, I mean, that's an idea as well. Or you could just film yourself doing it as well. I mean, there's lots of ideas, when you release it. I think there's marketing strategy that you can think about to reach different audiences who use different mediums. People like to go in places and they might see you there.
I've done all of that, but I don't know, maybe because you are, in the more visual part, maybe you could have some advice to make, I don't know, maybe, do you know any tool where you can move an animated character? To create videos, short videos, to promote it, maybe.
So I'm not an animator, but yeah, you could very well explore having an animator look at your novel and see if you wanted to, create some animations for it. I mean, what I did recently for a poet, actually, I worked with a poet last year, and she had a poem around ocean acidification, and so I created a 3-minute video for her with her poem. So she read the poem, and we had some music, and so I did the images, and the images were on the screen, and then we had a layover text of her poem. But as the poem went on, because it's about ocean acidification, it's about losing the calcification of the shells and so on. So it's about the dissolving, the dissolving of the shell as we go. So the words disappearing as the poem goes, the words are disappearing from the screen. It's really cool. You can Google it. It's ocean acidification poem, and yeah, it's very effective, and we showed that at events and stuff. So I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, or if you're talking about something more 3D animation or 2D animation. But I think you could you could explore all options, really depending on the focus. But if you're talking about corals, there's a lot of coral images that you can find, and yeah, I hope you succeed. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have a last question from Milena. Milena, will you ask your question?
Yes. I have a question about some applications about filmmaking or documentary about the ocean. I mean, to attract more community and so on. Can you suggest us some applications for that?
So there's no app per se. Maybe we need to invent one. I just use you mean like video editing software, do you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I use Adobe Premiere. I don't want to give advertising, but I use Premiere, and some people use Final Cut Pro, some people use Resolve, some people use Movie Maker, so like on the Mac. But I use Adobe because that's what I use, and it works fine. I mean, it really depends on your setup as well. If you have a PC, a Mac, if you have a laptop or desktop, what sort of machine you have. I know that a lot of people now, they do on their phones directly, so you can actually film from your phone, you can edit on your phone, you can put the layer, the images on the phone. I think it's cool, but I think it's it's not necessarily what I would use. I mean, you can use it on the go, maybe if you're traveling and you don't have your laptop and you have to do a video now, and you can do it, but I wouldn't use that professionally anyway. I mean, that's not it's not really I mean, some people might say that it's professional, but I think it's not necessarily professional. So I'd rather work on a good machine, on a good laptop or desktop. And what you need is really a good graphics card and a good storage, really good storage for your data. If you're filming, especially if you're filming in 4K, you need a lot of hard drive storage. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you everyone for your question. We are coming to the end of the meeting. James, would you like to say some final words?
No, I think it's really great to see the work of the Youth4Ocean Forum, and to see so many people who care about the ocean. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and great to be part of this community. So yeah, I hope to cross paths with you someday somewhere. Thank you.
Yes, we hope to, and maybe on the occasion of the European Maritime Day. So thank you everyone for your participation, and let's meet soon for our next Meet the Blue Expert meeting.